Thank you for taking this moment to breathe and to listen to what can change your life forever. My name is Ragnar Sinikas, and I'm the founder of Starpreneur TV, How to Dominate the Decade Talk Show, World Women Conference and Awards, the creator of Coral Desk, the coach of the Changemaker, and co-author of the book, How to Dominate the Decade. My mission is to empower through education, and thank you very much for joining us today. And today I have the honor to talk with Rita Singh, and she's from India, the only woman to have won a silver medal in Arnold class, the only woman who has silver medal in Amateur Olympia, and winning the gold medal and overall championships at the first Cheru Classic Pro Qualifier, winning the pro card and being the reason for the national anthem being played on the stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Rita. Rita, tell us your story, who you are, what are you doing in that field, why fitness? Tell us a little more about you.
Okay, so first, hello everybody, and thank you for having me here. And first of all, I would like to tell you a bit about my background, because I came into fitness and bodybuilding in a very different way, different from others. So yeah, that is why it happened to me at an older age. So I was born, in a family when my father was in the Air Force, and my mother, she had a very prolonged sickness. She was a patient of schizophrenia. So it was a challenging childhood for me. People who have been through challenges would you can be able to kind of relate. But eventually, I got married and I wanted to pursue my higher education to an extent which I wasn't able to as much as I would have liked to. And then, eventually I had my son who had autism. So in the beginning years, he was almost 15 years old, and until then I hadn't done much with my own self. I was like totally focused on him. And in the process of bringing him up, I had involved myself in a lot of physical activities like swimming and such sports to help him develop, and have an overall all-round development, which would help him and enrich him in as many ways as possible. So once he was about, in middle of his teenage, he wanted to be like a muscular, have that kind of physique as all young boys do as they enter that age. And that was something which he wanted to do on his own. Like till now, I had been telling him what to do, what not to do. But I was very, very encouraged that there's something which now he wants to pursue. And so because he had his own challenges and he couldn't have managed it on his own at a gym, so I took him along and I started weight training. And then I realized that even I'm good at it, I can go about. And at that time, in the beginning, a lot of gym trainers, most of the people, in fact, in our society, we're not kind of, it wouldn't relate to women doing weight training, and especially heavy weight training. Although the perception has changed a lot now, but at the time it was a huge challenge. And so, just to justify myself and authenticate what I'm doing and manage the resistance, which I was getting all the time, and the kind of being ridiculed with my child doing, things which are not conventional. So I had to go on to study a lot and, certify myself so that I can talk about it and justify what I'm doing. And in the process, I met a lot of people who encouraged me to participate in competitions where there were not many women who were participating in the beginning. And so that's how I started competing, and then went on to do bodybuilding actually. So once I started, when I made up my mind to compete, I had to. There were no competitions in India where they were held in the way the bodybuilding competitions for women are held on an international stage. So I actually traveled abroad to train myself with people who kind of know the protocols and the mandatory poses and what it takes to win an international show. And I trained myself, and then I started competing, and then that's why I'm one of the first women from India who competed and represented India on stage internationally. In spite of the fact that India is a was like, now things have evolved a lot, over 1.5 decades, but at that time we had a very 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 orthodox society, especially the family I come from. And so I had to kind of fight it all out. And that really encouraged me. There was a huge section of people who were very supportive of me, that in spite of all the challenges and the resistance that I was facing, I was able to come forward and still do it all by myself. So there was certainly, when there are people opposing you, there will be, if you're doing something productive and positive, there will be sometimes a greater number of people, maybe not necessarily close to you, but they look upon you as somebody who's breaking stereotypes. And so I was very encouraged by the kind of respect and adulation that I was able to get. And so a lot of women started joining in, and that kind of helped me to grow. And I really wanted to then on stick to this profession. So after I did a lot of competitions over a decade, over a period of 1 decade, and there were competitions that I won. There were competitions I didn't win anything, but the experience and the process, taught me a lot. And then there was the time to kind of monetize it. And so I became a bodybuilding judge. And once you're aging, every sports person has a shelf life, because there is an imminent wear and tear that comes for every sports person, no matter what sports he or she is associated with. And so I started doing consultations. I'm now an international judge, and I judge shows that are held internationally by the IFBB. And so I have a supplement business too. And so I'm moving on in this. And now since the lockdown has started, I've kind of made up my mind to start online classes and workshops also. So that is who I am. And so in the process of bringing up my son, I kind of lost a lot of years, where I could think about my own self. So there was a few pursuits which I had to take up. And so all the dreams which, like, I loved classical dance when I was young, South Indian classical dance, that is Bharatnatyam. So I have started the journey again. And I'm kind of retraining myself. I'm reading a lot. I'm writing articles in 3 magazines who encourage me a lot. So all the things which I ever wanted to do and learn, I've begun to pursue that. And so I'm still a student and still a teacher. That's who I am.
Beautiful story, and I'm really happy that you are here today, not to share your story, but to share your son's story, because I think it's very inspirational that despite having autism, which is in some cases is very severe diagnosis for not only for the kid itself, but also for the families, and in reality, whoever needs to conquer that in their life, it's something that you really need to rearrange your life, because there can't be me, no. So because you always need to be for the kid and there.
I actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Actually, I was, earlier I wouldn't talk about it. The only thing I was talking about on social media platforms or elsewhere was about my bodybuilding. And, I kept my family and, my personal life really out of this. And, it was almost a period with the Luani itself, when I started talking, when I was introduced to this organization. And then I realized that a lot of women came back to me and started talking to me. And I felt that, in this journey of, now he's almost 31 years old now. And, I was able to, I have a lot of experience. And I have learned a lot, and because my mother also has been through that similar sickness, so I have learned how to handle it mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. So I felt that in fact I could be really be a helping hand in helping people to handle it mentally, and that's about everything it actually requires. So I felt that I must actually come forward and talk about it. So that's why I now mention it. Otherwise I wasn't even mentioning it initially.
I actually would like to talk about it, not just to mention it, because I think we can find a lot of coaches, and we can find a lot of trainers. Whoever wants to become a great fitness athlete, I think there's a lot of variety, and that's something. But I think something which, and that would be my question to you as well. What distinguishes you in life? But I think we already got the answer, because being able to achieve what you have achieved through your own success, but thinking now that you were able to do all of that, having autistic kid by your side, and actually being able to inspire or being inspired by your son, is something which would show a light to a lot of families and a lot of mothers who on daily basis live with the same situation. So I would actually would like to concentrate on that, and giving maybe some more specific tools for those women, and not only women, for families which are living that reality. And how do you find your everyday inspiration? How do you find your everyday strength? And how do you really structure your life in a way that it becomes a healthy habit for the family and for the kids? So if you can walk us through, for example, your daily life when you started to train with your son, what were your wins, and where did you see the challenges, for example?
Yeah, see, initially, because my mother was sick, and we had obviously a very troubled family in my childhood. I had always looked forward to having, sort of a normal family, if you may call it, with everything fine, and we every family has issues, no doubt, but if only people who have lived in such families know that there's an unspoken extraordinary situation, and it's not for 1 day, 2 day, or just a temporary sickness. It's a lifelong journey, and it's not a physical thing, where, because the person who is sick cannot even think, and can be exceptionally unreasonable and weird, and you got to tell yourself to be calm, no matter how ridiculous things may sound. So it was my wish to have a normal family, and when this happened, I really had nothing to look forward to, because so this was all I had. So I thought that if I really want to do something extraordinary in life, then I must take this up as the purpose of my life. So maybe it was my childhood that inspired me to first of all take it up, as my life ambition and goal. Because a lot of doctors at that time told me that he wouldn't be able to talk, but he would be articulate, but it could be a parrot speech, or he may not be able to assign logic and reasoning and meaning to words. So so he wouldn't be able to maybe speak full sentences and put meaning to objects and words, assign them together. So some children do it, but it may take 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and some people are able to manage it. But no parent can practically ever do that. So so it never gets, it's absolutely incurable. So since I had nothing to look forward to now, because I had kind of I was in a stage where I'd lost everything. So I said, okay, maybe no parent is able to take it up, but I will take it up. So from his very young age, I had in India at that time, we didn't have any information or literature about autism. And the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, they told me that it showed symptoms of that, but we don't know much about it. So I wrote to one of my uncles in USA, and I requested him for literature, and he was very kind. Like, he sent me a lot, because at the time we didn't have computers and mobile phones. He's just sent physical copies of, by post. And but I got them and I studied them. And in the beginning I tried to take him to psychologists and counselors. But the time of commutation and being in the waiting room, and how commercially oriented they were rather than being dedicated, I felt that they would never be able to do justice. It's like doing too much, going out of the way too much, and just get an hour, which is not going to be productive at all. And then in one of the sessions, when I was sitting outside, I saw him, one of the doctors, slapping a child who was not able to, understand, what he was being taught. So that really hurt me a lot. And I thought that whatever they are doing, let me get a knack of it, and then, develop my own therapeutic modalities and my own properties. And kind of, a mother's intervention is much more than a psychologist, if she's really bent upon. So I did it on my own. And then I wanted him to be in a normal school. So I offered voluntary work in the school, so that and I made myself so indispensable, and I was working free of cost, that they allowed him. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow such children in schools. So then, they saw that I was working so hard on him. And it was just a process of keeping him there and then teaching him on my own. I used to actually rewrite all his books, and kind of sing it out to him, and try to make him learn it by heart. And I did everything, all the weird and silly things in the world, with love. And it was a very challenging period, but it was literally like working 36 hours in a day, not 24 hours. It was like more than I could really do it. But I was very determined. And you know the results were not as much as I would have wanted. But there were always improvements, and that kept giving me hope. And whenever I compared him from what he was a few months ago, the graph was always up. The graph was never flat. And that kept me going. And at that time, my father was alive when he was very young. So he used to tell me one thing, that value the presence of life, and don't take anything so seriously, because everything is going to end one day. you know so life is a collection of moments, actually. And if your child, the person who has life and who's come on in this world, if his life is a happy one, and he's able to do something as compared to what abilities he has been endowed with, then I think you are very, very victorious, and you should be extremely elated about it. So that kept me going, that okay, I'm still a very happy person, because he's improving. And he eventually did his post graduation in UK, in Leeds Metropolitan University. So it was after after he did his schooling, he kind of, he was not able to do, he wasn't successful for about 3 years here. And it wasn't a very sensitive society in India. In India, there is a lot of prejudice as far as psychiatric ailments are concerned. But in UK, they have a society, and they have they have autism societies, and they have departments in the universities itself, where they help out, and there are counselors who I felt would not be biased or prejudiced. So I used to go, at regular intervals, and take care of him, and take it as also an opportunity that he will get to become very independent. And so that's where he learned to actually pull off and live without my presence. And it was literally a virtual presence. So when he and when he started weight training and bodybuilding, it was something actually he wanted to do. Now, before bodybuilding, I was also teaching him how to swim, how to do skating, because one of the research says that autistic children have cerebral hypoplasia. And so because cerebellum is kind of related to balance, so balancing exercise might help to stimulate that aspect of them. And so I taught him skating and swimming, and I was kind of reliving my life along with him. It was like I did all my schooling all over again. I did my sporting endeavors all over again. I learned to swim. So I thought that I have a friend, I have a best friend. And to this date, when I practice, I practice my classical dance and he's present, I have somebody who is absolutely non-judgmental about me. Because having come to an age and having a certain kind of seniority, when I put practice, there may be people who may judge me or make fun of me, but I do have a friend who is absolutely non-judgmental. So when you surrender completely, the inspiration comes from within when you look at these children. And now I had to rise up to what he thinks about me too. So we're both very proud of each other. So it is for all the parents, as you said, that what I would like to tell our parents is that the first thing you have to do is you have to accept, that no matter what you do, even if you break your head on the wall, you're not going to change things. So what cannot be cured actually has to be endured. When you have no choice, then you just have to do your best and leave the rest on God. Because no matter who you are, no matter how powerful you are, there will be a point in no matter what endeavor you have made, whether it is a scholastic thing or your business, there is a certain point where you cannot control. There is an upper limit to everything. So at that point you got to do your best and leave it to God. So once you have that sense of surrender and faith in your destiny and your karma, then definitely you get the faith and you're able to make peace with your circumstances. And if you enjoy what you have and you're able to see the positive side of it, there will be so much that it will be enough to inspire you to keep going. And you love the presence of life. That is the most important thing.
What do you also see? One part is the physical and the capacity to learn, but what do you also see from nutrition point of view? Like how much did you need to study for different way of eating or nutrition in a way that I've been sort of involved in autistic kids, and I have studied and learned a lot about the topic. So obviously I'm no expert whatsoever, but what how were you able to cope with that side? Like again, we are talking about 30 years ago. Today you just open Mr. Google and it will give you a lot of information, but was that something that you paid attention, or what would you say on that, on nutrition side?
No, you're talking about me, because there is a disturbance.
You as when you started to do the fitness in that high level, and obviously also for your son, because I think even if you want to do whatever type of sports, you need to support that with a correct nutrition, no?
Yes, obviously, yes. The nutrition is as actually the key, especially in sports, and it depends on the kind of activity and the target. So, when I began, I obviously didn't know about it. I was, still studying, but to apply it, you in the beginning you do need coaching, very very specific coaching, and whatever was available for bodybuilding, was from the perspective of men. Now, if you consider one very small thing, that women, they have more of the slow twitch muscle fibers, and men, the muscle glycogen that is used during their workout, whether it's strength training or resistance training, is kind of attenuated. It is lesser than the muscle glycogen and the creatine phosphate that is used when it comes to women than in men. And women use more of the intramuscular triglyceride, the IMTG. So the nutrition of men and women varies a lot, you know. So men may need more of muscle glycogen and to replenish that. So whatever information, that's just a small example actually. And since there are so many cyclic changes in women when it comes to menstruation and their mood and emotions, and also the genetic disposition of a women, the nutrition requirements are, they vary quite a lot. Secondly, the targets, even if you compare bodybuilders, men and women, men need to gain a certain size and a kind of hypertrophy in their muscles, whereas women, they just need to shape themselves up, and the shape should be actually coming from the muscularity and not from the fat. You don't need those tires and bumps. You need the actual curves of the, which kind of display the formation of muscle. So, and the kind of hard work that you have done. So in the beginning I wasn't aware, and I had to have a coach of how to go about it. But my coaches were from USA. I trained with Shannon Day and with Dennis James, who have kind of trained athletes at the highest level in the Mr. Olympia contest. So I was very fortunate to be able to travel there and get in touch with them. So right from forming the habits and conditioning your mind, it takes a lot to understand nutrition. Anybody can write a diet and give it to you, but one of the key things I have seen is that uh, people, they learn, like, for example, if I give a diet to somebody, they may not, it may not be practical, in his or her circumstances. And secondly, the person must be able to prioritize that what do they really want. You don't want people to be nibbling in between. So it is the mind that you need to overcome, rather than anything else. So the and the, as far as the activity is concerned, like if you have an athlete who's running a marathon, they need the replacement of electrolytes, and the muscle glycogen is, so they need a high carbohydrate diet. Whereas a woman, who is not training that heavy, may like to go on a low carb diet, depending on the kind of goals she's having actually. So a powerlifting woman will need more of carbohydrate. So it really depends on the targets, and how to condition it is the how to train your mind to stick to a diet. That's the key. So the sports are so varied, and there are so many sports, and there's so many individuals here, and there are body types. You could be ectomorph, you could be a mesomorph or an endomorph, depending on the kind of size you have, and and all your genetic disposition. So it is so varied. But in for general fitness, I would just like to say that a clean, balanced diet is something that works. We have a lot of fad diets now, ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting. They see it on Google and YouTube, and they just follow it blindly, and forgetting that they may have certain conditions in which it may not be advisable to do that. And even ketogenic diet is such a huge fad these days. So it can be taken up in certain circumstances, but we don't recommend that. It's not practical at all. So you got to first, if I go to a coach, you got to give your 100% trust, because you may, if you're going to rely on Google and YouTube completely, you cannot, it's not going to last very long. Textbook ideas may sound very boring, but once you train yourself to eat like that, and understand, and develop your taste like that, your priorities like that, then things fall in place, for the long term.
Would you say that there is some specific things that should be avoided at any cost in any diet, for example?
First of all, I wouldn't even consider these a part of diet, but smoking and alcohol, as you know, is something that should be avoided. At least, smoking is a complete no-no. The thing is that this is the, that's a very good question from a fitness professional's perspective. The reason is that everybody will write a diet and tell you what to do, but how you need to overcome is what not to do. That is the key. I can write a diet and give you, and you can follow it, and then you feel hungry and you don't know how to conquer those hunger pangs. It may be something else. It may be thirst for water. It may be electrolytes that is making you feel low. So all the junk food and the aerated drinks, and everything, I mean, like too much of sweet, too much of chocolate, too much of ice cream. I wouldn't say don't have that. I mean, I don't have that, but if I say that to somebody, they're all going to run away from me. So we try to say that concentrate on portion control. So one key I tell people is that suppose you have something which ideally you shouldn't have if you want a good body. Then say you're having a chocolate, try to have it in silence, and concentrate a lot on the taste. Keep it for a longer time in your mouth, so that your taste buds are satisfied, and you get the maximum enjoyment from it. Relish it to the most, so that you get over that craving. So like, I'll give you an example. Suppose you have peanuts. You love peanuts, and you just take in 4 or 5 peanuts, or say a mouthful of peanuts, and then just swallow them quickly. The calories are still inside you, but you have still not got the enjoyment of it. And there is a hormone called leptin, which is secreted 20 minutes after you have finished eating your meals, and that is the satisfying hormone that kind of tells you that your hunger has been satisfied. So if you eat slowly, you get enough time for the leptin to be secreted. So instead of 4 peanuts, if you just take 1 peanut and you chew it for a long time. So what happens is that you, first of all, you get the enjoyment of it to the maximum, and secondly, you get time to chew it, and partial digestion already happens in the mouth. And once you have swallowed it, by the time, the passage of time is longer, so the brain gets time to secrete leptin, which is the hunger hormone. So you will have, there's more chances that even if you're eating something which is rather an indulgence, uh, rather than what you really need for a good nutrition, you get time to get the enjoyment of it, and your hunger is satisfied. So eat slow and chew a lot if you really want to eat something, and relish it to the most, so that the hunger is taken, the craving is taken care of.
And if we talk about from the autistic point of view, did you notice some ingredients, for example, which you just took out from your son's diet, for example, where you saw that as soon as he has, I don't know, sugar or lactose or gluten or whatever, that didn't really make or it didn't do good for him, for example? Do you have any relations with that?
In the beginning, I was always very conscious about diet and fitness, and that has been a part of me always. And so in the beginning, I never, I wanted him to develop tastes in such a way that, he doesn't indulge too much. But once he started going to school, he was fond of, dark chocolates and lots of chocolates. So I told him to, control the portion. Otherwise, he would just get fat. And, with autism, the problem is such that they tend to get obsessed with one thing, and then they wouldn't leave it, no matter what. So it's a big challenge. So we don't say that leave it completely, something that you like, but you got to control. So I gave him kind of target, that your weight shouldn't go beyond a certain point, and you should be going to the gym regularly. You should be, I take him for a walk sometimes. So I take care of everything else around that. But yes, they say that there are certain diet restrictions that may some dietary foods that may hurt the children in a certain way, but I was never able to get him to do that. And he had a surgery, a rectal, his rectum had to be removed. And after that, he himself had to leave on gluten food, gluten, because he was sensitive to gluten. That was not because of autism. But they say that too much of food which are stimulating effects, they try to avoid. But he was fine with that. I think if there is an issue like that, then it's better to create a balance and minimize it rather than completely remove it. Otherwise it becomes very counterproductive if the child wants it, because once they are obsessed with a certain thing, if you try to fight it out, it becomes very, very counterproductive.
So if we talk about all your life experience now, and let's talk about how do you use that experience to help your community, help the people that are in very similar situations like you. Like, what are the projects that you are involved today, and what do you do on the fields of helping other mothers, helping other families and kids in the same situations?
Yes, I didn't get your question, because there is a little disturbance, but I think you asked me how do you help other families, and, from experience that you have learned. This is what you have asked me.
Yeah.
All right. So, there are people, there are mothers, especially from the time that, he actually sang a song on stage. And that was actually almost the first time I went out, about him, because no, very few people even knew about it. And so a lot of mothers approached me, and they said that, you know uh, our child is not even vocal, and we are facing a lot of challenges, and how did you do that? And we see your child talking, smiling, and being along with you, and you're like friends. So we want to talk about it. So when so many mothers approached me, that was when I made up my mind that it's almost my duty to give back and talk about it. So many of the women from Luani itself, they personally called me, and Sarah is there, as you know, and she has this challenge too. So I spoke to her, and so her, their children are small, and so there is still, they have a long way to go as far as acceptance is concerned, and they don't know how to handle the teachers, because sometimes teachers can be very, very harsh, not because they mean to, but the teachers have to kind of handle a lot of students, and their own, that individual child may not be as much a priority. But and it has happened with me too, that sometimes such children are considered kind of a menace in the class. And in India, sometimes people make fun of you, and so you need to balance that. And so, how I did it was, maybe a couple of things I can say about it. Like, that autistic children, they always stay in a world of their own. And so, but I wanted him to socialize and try to get as much a normal environment, as much as possible. That was the one of the main reasons why I wanted him to go to school, because I didn't have relatives or people with whom he could mingle. He didn't have many cousins who would accept him graciously, and respect him. And there would be too much of pointing out upon me as a mother, because parents of autistic children are always judged too much. The reason is that these children are physically normal, sometimes extremely good looking. Many of them, over a period of time, they become articulate, and they have no obvious handicap which you can see. It's only when you deal with them on a daily basis, and you go through the trauma and the insecurity about their future, and you get ridiculed by how people make fun of you, on a daily basis, that it's only then you realize that how challenging it is to actually, you cannot explain and justify to everybody. So my idea was to socialize him in the beginning as much as possible, So I used to get children from my neighborhood and kind of tempt them that I'll give you chocolates or I will play with you. So I used to play like a child with those children, and they were all over my house, and sometimes spend a lot of money taking them out. But my primary purpose inside was to get him the company. And it was sometimes very difficult because they would mingle among themselves and he would be again alone in a crowd. So I had to involve myself in a way in which a matured woman would not want to. It's difficult to play like a small kid. So that was very challenging. And in school, everybody, and whether it's the teachers and also the neighbors and the relatives, they're always blaming the parents, that if you would have done this, he would have been better in such and such way, and so on and so forth. They always know why my son is having problems. Everybody would know that what is the best thing for him till the time they have a child like that on their own. So these are the challenges, and it is very nice to come to a person who's been through it, and how I have been able to go about it. So another thing that can be done is that let things happen and go with the flow. You have to have a parallel sense of detachment with the result. So, in India, we have the Bhagavad Gita, which says that, do your work and don't bother about the result. So, if you keep going and have consistency in whatever you're doing, then, you will reach somewhere. You will improvise every day. And now, after a period of, say, 2 decades and 3 decades, what happens is that there will be a point of time when these children will be on their own. So now my son, like, he helps me in business, he helps me in my work, he helps me in typing articles, or in little things around the house, so that I can be more efficient. And so he is the key to my success, actually. So that brings me a lot of peace, that he may be whatever and whosoever, but I have come somehow got him into the habit of working hard. So hard work is one of the values that I have given him by example, and by pushing him all the time, that you got to do this. And I always, I never gave him the stick. I just, like people do the carrot and stick way, but and just the carrots were there, and the stick I left out, that okay, just let it be, and you don't need to do it. And the third thing I like to tell all mothers who have children with any challenges is that these children may be condemned by the entire world. Every single person may make fun of them, ridicule them, look upon them. But if they have this one thing, that they have a mother to come back to, they should have a feeling that no matter who says what to me, no matter what wrong I do or what right I do, I have this one mother to come back to me. These children will be emotionally very strong, and they may be, they may not be capable, but they will not go grossly wrong. They no matter what wrong they do, they will be able to come and have faith in the mother, that I did this thing which is wrong, and no matter whether it is socially acceptable or not. So they have a friend and a soulmate at home. So if you are able to give that kind of strength to these children, you actually get back much more strength than you're giving. So I think these are the keys, that you have to, because you cannot cure the child completely, but you can make arrangements around the child, when you're alive and after you are gone, so that the child is able to live in dignity. Now that is one of the purposes of my life. I look for all the possibilities and options, that while I'm alive now, maybe my next decade, and whatever I'm doing, even for myself, I would try to create a legacy, and a financial backing, and a kind of a legal setup, and arrange things around him in such a way that he's able to live his life in dignity, even after I'm gone. So that cannot be done in one day. It has to be planned, and it has to be thought of, because in today's world, it's not just leaving a child with a lot of money and he'll spend and he'll go. It's not like that. It just doesn't work. When a child has challenges and he's not able to associate logic and understand dangers, real dangers, and imaginary fears, he's not able to distinguish between them. Anybody can take undue advantage around him. So we got to take care of his safety. And in fact, I had been in touch with I had mentioned this to Caroline long back. I'm sure she's around, where that I actually really I'm working on this. And we need to kind of in all the countries that Luani is present, and especially in India, we would like to work upon laws and regulations along with the government. In India we have the Niti Aayog, so that this kind of setups can be done. And welfare, because we have a lot of provisions and privileges for children who are physically handicapped. So while we are alive, we can take care of everything and life just goes on. But the kind of because physically handicapped people can still think. They will know when somebody is doing wrong, they can ask for help. But people who have challenges mentally, they are not able to think for themselves. They're not able to perceive whether they're safe or not. And they can be so naive and innocent that it's so scary. So their innocence is almost dangerous for their own selves. So we want to kind of work with organizations to have provisions for children, so that not only me, but in times to come, even if we can create something for all the parents, there are provisions like that, especially if they don't have siblings or relatives that they can trust.
It's beautiful, and it's really, really inspirational what you have accomplished to how to set up your life, how to set up the life of your son. It's an incredible story, and I thank you very much for taking this courage, because it takes a courage to share your struggles, to show your weaknesses, to show your strengths, and really share your story with people that do not know you. But nevertheless, we see more and more, and specifically there are communities where we have now such a high percentage of autistic kids that we can't even say what is more normal, being autistic or not being autistic. So because if we see our classrooms, then it starts to become 50% of autistic kids and 50% of not diagnosed, let's say. Now, there's no such thing like normal and not normal. So I don't want to use that term in that sense, but it's absolutely incredible. And I want to thank you for your dedication. I want to thank you for all the services that you have done as a parent, as a person that is a very inspirational leader in your community, and now not only in yours, but you're sharing that with ours. So I also want to thank everybody that are watching us and have joined us in Zoom. I'm going to ask Rita her 3 recommendations how to dominate the decade. But until she's answering that, please, if you have questions or comments, leave them, whether you're watching on Facebook, leave them below the video. I am able to see the questions or comments under Ragnar Sinika's profile. If you are watching in Coral Desk, we will take a look after the session there, and we will answer also all your questions there, so don't worry. But Rita, what would be your 3 recommendations how to dominate the decade?
Okay, the first recommendation is that no matter what profession you are involved in or whatever is your endeavor, whether it is in life, you must study, you must read a lot about it. You must explore, everything around it, so that, you can just get the knack of it. You can just get the soul of, you own the subject. So and so that you can even think of new ideas and be very, very, very innovative. So that is my first recommendation, that you must study and explore as much as possible. The second is that enjoy the process. You know, when you are working on something, you just don't get the result. It's always a process, and it is always a journey. You don't come to an end and okay, lo and behold, I'm here. That's about it. You have to always be evolving and enjoy the process. So the moment is everything. And the third is to delegate, delegate, and delegate. You have to delegate as much as possible, so that you are building a community around you, and you're growing, and you're giving you're inspiring, and kind of giving livelihood and nourishing a society. If you try to do everything on your own, then there will be you will be greatly limited to your human abilities and limitations. But if you delegate, then you can work at a very strategic level, and explore more horizons, and help more people, and form a community, and grow together. So you become extremely strong if you delegate.
Those are
And I
very,
feel that you must also work a lot on your relationships in your fraternity. If you have a very high credibility, it helps a lot to go further, and grow in the long run.
those are very good points to act on. So I wrote them down as well. So whoever you're watching, I hope you did the same. We have questions. So who is the person you admire the most?
Um, I admire my father. He's not anymore, but I'm kind of made of him. And one of the things, he was a very rare father that I could always go back to, no matter what time or at the night it was. But one thing which lives with me forever. Why he stands out as a father. All parents are there for their children always. I'm there for my son too. But in India, we have a culture that the parents are always telling their children, we brought you up, you got to look after us. That's a beautiful thing, and that's the duty of the children. But my father, he used to say that, you don't need to look after me. um, as you were growing up, I got the I got the result, and I got the fruit of bringing you up just by watching you grow. You gave me the the happiness of becoming a father, and my satisfied my parental instincts. So I will continue to live through you, and so I will look after you. I'm thankful to you for being there, for being my child, and to see you grow is to see my future. So this is something which I have never heard any parent saying. So it was with that spirit that he looked after me till the end of his life. And not only looked after me, he was there for me, not only in my childhood, but as I grew up. And when I was looking after my son, and I was going through all the emotional turmoils, and I wasn't able to accept what has happened, it was he who gave me the strength and ability to accept with gracefully, and not just accept, but be elated about having a life in my life. And so that, and make, because he made my life very special. My child, he's made my life very special. He's taught me to evolve. And that enlightenment was brought in me by my father. So I am made of him. I'm made of his flesh and blood, so I obviously admire him the most.
How do you handle stress?
I distract myself when there's something that I am involved in many activities. I'm involved in classical dance, in exercise, in writing articles, looking after my son. There is so much to do. There's a lot, and I also am a World Peace Ambassador. So there is a lot to do. So, and a lot of subjects that I study. So the very people ask me, how do you manage so many things? I say that the very diversity actually keeps me going. I'm never bored. So when I'm bored of one thing, I have something else to look after, look forward to. So, that is the greatest, and it's very beneficial. So I look like I'm multitasking and I'm doing a lot, but actually I'm enjoying a little bit of everything, and I don't stress myself about it. So that works for me.
Do you believe in karma?
Yes, I do, but not in a way that you do something good and then God will give you a fruit, and something will fall from heaven, and if you do something bad, then God is going to catch hold of you and do something bad to you. Not like that. But if suppose in your fraternity you've been a good person and somebody does something bad to you, then what happens is that that person, anybody who does something bad, it's because of his disposition. That is his problem. So he will eventually get isolated on his own. You just need to be quiet. Just need to be resilient at that time and continue with a smile. And then things fall in place, because people who are really good, who are genuinely good, they may be misunderstood temporarily, but it will come back to them. And the same with people who don't mean good. Then eventually they will be like that with everybody, not just with you. So it will come back to them. So you build your own credibility, you build your own aura. So just by the practicalities of the world, the karma comes back to you. But I don't believe it. And you do something and suddenly God is going to do magic. People like to believe in magic, but I don't do that.
And the last question is, what is your passion?
What is my passion?
Yes.
Well, I think it goes without saying that to really I want to be fit, as fit as humanly possible. So I work upon my fitness, and one of the reasons I want to be fit is to be able to live my life to the fullest and explore my potentials, and to be able to serve my son and my family until the end of my life. If I can be strong, because I have lost 2 decades of being my own individual self. And I know what it is to explore your potential. Life has, God has given you a lot of talents and hidden things. I like to explore myself. So you can do that. Like, I'm doing classical dance now only because I'm fit. So to be able to explore my potential, and for that to be very, very fit mentally and physically, that is what I strive for. And that really makes me feel very elated. So that's what I'm passionate about.
There's a beautiful comment in Facebook I will read. It's a great example of self-sacrifice for others. It makes a great difference. There are different ways to guide a gate. Every person have a different way to learn and to feel. And the best way is to identify what is their feeling and personality and understand, because when they feel supported, no matter what kind of person and intelligence they have, artistic, mathematical, emotional, they will feel safe to be their self, and success is what they want. I just can imagine how challenging it is to work with such special kids. Thank you for such good examples. So thank you, Mo, for your great comments. And the other one, sometimes one life is not enough to do all we want. I could not agree more.
I could agree more.
So Rita, if someone was watching today and they wanna follow you and they wanna contact you, how they can do so?
Okay, I'm on Facebook by the name of Rita Singh, and on Instagram by Rita_Jairath, RITA_JAIRATH. Rita Jairath, sorry, I'm RITA_JAIRATH _IFBB and I'm on Twitter by @Rita Singh 76. So these are the three handles, and I hope that I will see a lot of you, all of you.
So what would you say as a final message to sort of close our session? What message do you want people to take from our interview?
I would say that no matter what you're doing, just do your very best. Be honest and genuine in your pursuits, but always have a parallel sense of detachment, because man proposes and God disposes. So if you do your best and still you don't get the result, believe me, I have seen it, that it is it is for your betterment. Because when something happens, which when something you want happens, it's really good. But when something happens which you do not want, and your desire is not fulfilled, then remember that that is the will of God. So that is maybe even better. So if you have faith and still remain positive, definitely you will see more and more and more opportunities in the future, and life will be very peaceful and beautiful. And life is a collection of moments. So if your happiness depends on your disposition and not on your circumstances. So if you choose to be happy and say that I'm going to be happy, let all the bad things happen around me, I don't care, I'm still going to be happy, then you are really a winner in life.
Beautiful message, beautiful story. I'm very humbled and grateful that you shared your story with us. So you're so special in my mind, in a sense that I admire your strength a lot. And I think there's a lot of women which will do the same. So it's really hard for me to close it with something very intelligent to say, because I have been just listening and I have been just having one thought in my mind, and that's admiration for Rita and everything which I heard. So nevertheless, I hope that you, who you are watching, you did make notes. I hope you wrote down things, and most important, I hope you take action on those. Whether it's your physical condition that you want or need to take care or improve, whether it's nutrition, whether you are in very similar situation with your family life, whether it's just an inspiration that whatever is put on our shoulder, it's measured very well, because I tend to believe that we are put through the challenges which we really can handle. So it's just we need to embrace those challenges, and this is where we really grow, because it's out of our comfort zone. So you can be the hero of your life. How? By taking the action today. And you can be the hero of someone else's life. How? By sharing this video. Because the more you see and the more we look around, we see a lot of parents being at the same situation. And none of us is prepared. And the worst thing is that our school systems are not prepared. Our teachers are not prepared. So if we want to talk about inclusion, we need to start this from this. As we are to include is our mindset, something that we need to work with. It's not someone else's problem, it's our problem. It's our society, it's our community, it's the community where you live. How are you perceived? If you don't have a problem, how do you think? How do you respond? How do you act? This is something that you can change. And you can include and you can support, even if you today are not in that situation, which doesn't always give you the chance that maybe tomorrow, when you are waiting to become a mother or father, you're not going to be put in that situation. So yes, there is a karma, and you can change something in your life today and in someone else's life today. Make it happen, be the hero of your own life and someone else's life. I will see you tomorrow at the same time, at the same channel. Tomorrow we are going to have a guest from Portugal. So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. I'm very excited to greet the guest as well. And in less than 1 hour, we will have our Secretary of Tourism, Baja California Sur, with me talking in Spanish, and we will be discussing the future of Baja California Sur, Mexico. Rita, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for all the incredible tools, tips, experience which you shared today. I think that 1 hour was not enough. I really want to have you back, because I think all the questions which I prepared, I didn't basically ask maybe 10% of them, because we just went with the flow, and I think the result is incredible, and I hope that everyone who was watching and investing their time was enjoying as much as I did. Or if you didn't, then I was egoistic today, but I did. So, so thank you for investing your time. Thank you it's very late in India. Thank you for doing this that late. And we will be back with you very shortly. So thank you.
Certainly, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.